Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by HARK. My name is Paul Webb, and I am the founder of B2B Energy and your host. And wherever you're listening to this podcast today, I truly hope that you are safe. This is episode 44, where weekly I present to you experts from around the world. And today I'm in the UK, where we are with our new partners, HARK Systems. The purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. My guest this week is the founder and the CEO of HARK Systems. And HARK have developed a cloud platform and a software technology that allow enterprises to easily connect to. Their technology monitors and intelligently controls physical assets such as building management systems, energy submeters, industrial processes, and it provides automation and control. So without any further ado, I give you Jordan Appleson. Good afternoon, Jordan, and how are you today?
Paul, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's the height of summer, so I mean, my day's been good. It's not rained.
Well, keeps looking like it's going to rain. It's a really weird time at the moment. It's like April showers, but we've had that since April. Doesn't make sense, does it?
It's April showers, and it goes between like 27 degrees and then flash flooding right overnight. So I mean, I'm fortunate that I don't live in an area that's susceptible to that. But I've never heard of. I mean, it's climate change, isn't it? That's one of the reasons why we're here today speaking.
Exactly. That's why we're all here. So, Jordan, where are you based?
So I'm speaking to you from sunny Leeds, so in the glorious county of Yorkshire, West Yorkshire.
That isn't a Leeds accent, is it, or is it?
It's not. It's not a Leeds accent. Although I am from Leeds originally, I do get the you don't have a Yorkshire accent, and then I can't even do a Yorkshire accent, Paul. I'm from Yorkshire, and the best I can do is cup of tea and a pasty, love, and that's about it. And that's as far as my repertoire of Yorkshire accent goes. But I don't know what happened. It just never took on. I was clearly too sheltered on the computer growing up.
You must have been.
Yeah.
So we know each other through HARK Systems. You're the CEO of HARK Systems.
That's right.
And we've just recently joined and into a partnership, and now we boast that this podcast is powered by HARK. So
wow!
I'm very proud of that.
I you know what? I forgot that the terminology is going to be powered by HARK, but it's powered by HARK, and it's powered by professional microphones and good wit from you, Paul, as well.
Oh, thank you. So, Jordan, give us some background for our audience today, to yourself, where you come from, etc., regarding your background to this industry.
Absolutely. So, so I started writing software when I was about 10, and that's kind of how I got into the technology space. And I'm 26 now, so I founded HARK in 2016 after kind of moving on from a digital company where I was in charge of kind of analytics and data systems, really. And in that kind of time in my life, I was doing a lot of analytics for kind of car insurance and digital systems for like making, financial institutions more money. And I always wanted to do something a bit more meaningful. And I've always had a passion for electronics, electrical systems, energy storage systems. And I set up HARK with a couple of my friends to effectively connect to industry standard sensors, building management systems, industrial process controllers like in factories, to stream real-time data out of those systems, whether it's real-time energy data, real-time temperature data, process values, to automatically analyze and optimize those systems. So what HARK are as a business, we're an energy analytics and industrial IT business. So we work with supermarkets, retailers, factories, chemical processing companies, facilities management firms, utilities, to connect to the renewable assets, the existing building management systems, energy meters, to monitor, store, and analyze that data, and effectively help businesses kind of visualize, analyze, and do something with effectively that data to increase efficiency, maximize output, and reduce waste. And that's typically waste energy. So that's what we do in a nutshell. We've been around for about 5 years now. We work with Sainsbury's, probably one of our biggest flagship customers, where we monitor something like 24,000 assets for them in real time, control their building management systems based on things like triad warnings, dynamic price spikes, stuff like that. But also, we've got things like Tesla batteries on the platform, which are used to prop up the grid during kind of different types of, I suppose, frequency events or, arbitrage events that might happen with utilities. So quite a broad spectrum of what we do, but ultimately we've got a lot of energy management tools that we're working together with, with the B2B energy team to effectively, empower people to actually measure something that they typically haven't been able to do and optimize their buildings and effectively, reduce costs.
I'm going to have to stop you from right at the beginning. You said something. I've been developing software since I was 10. You've got to elaborate on that, please.
So I suppose I'll allude to what I was saying earlier around not having that Yorkshire accent. I've always had a passion. I don't know what it was. I think I originally wanted to design and build games as a 10-year-old. It was super cool to play computer games. And when I embarked on trying to learn programming, it was kind of C and Python to do with gaming at the time. And as a 10-year-old, that was quite daunting. And I wasn't very good at it, and then that moved on to web technologies like the likes of PHP, which is like what WordPress is powered by, the blogging platform. And then from there, it was kind of different technology like C# or Go in the later years, which is a language that Google, some people at Google kind of built or invented rather. And I always wanted to be like Iron Man, right? Build technology, build hardware systems, build a mechatronic suit or whatever it was, and that's where the love for kind of hardware and electrical systems came into play. So, when I was kind of 15, 16, I built my own Philips Hue version, which for like 10 quid a bulb, because £50 a bulb was a lot more expensive, plus the base station. And my mum and dad were like, you can't plug that stuff in the house. The house burns down. We're not insured for it, basically. But, it got me into being able to do this thing where it was like, okay, well, we've got software that can connect to these systems. But then you've got that physicality of how do you connect to the assets, or in this case, it was a bulb, but that then moves on to more advanced systems. So like the building management systems or the industrial factories where, I've been really fortunate to use our technology in the life sciences space to monitor like cryogenic systems, which it still does today, like liquid nitrogen tanks and labs, right, for temperature monitoring for regulatory compliance. So that's kind of how it started. And I've just got a pure passion for this. So usually, people are like, oh, you know about, I don't know, stability storage chambers or, energy storage or, the chemistry of lithium ion batteries or whatever. It's just because I read a lot and I love this stuff. So, and I'm fortunate to kind of work in it and have a business that can support those kind of things as well as do good, really.
And what made you align it all to the subject of energy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it kind of goes back to, what I said about moving on from that role. Like the role that I was in previously to HARK was fascinating from a technology perspective, but at the end of the day, it was very much these digital systems like Google search and ads, right, where it's effectively manufacturing more money for big organizations, which is fair enough. There's businesses that do that, and I always wanted to do something with that kind of aligned to something that was good for the planet, good for like, a physical thing. It wasn't, it had some physicality to it. What I was doing was affecting people and physical systems, and something that really closely aligned with my love of physics and energy. And I've always been absolutely, I suppose, I wouldn't know how to describe it, like super passionate about this concept of generating electricity and supply and demand and the physical systems and the physics behind what actually goes into things like the national grid and electrical systems and nuclear power plants and wind turbines, right? So when we were given the opportunity, as a business early on, which was very much a business to connect to sensors, and someone came along and said, we want to use this for energy, right? It was a no-brainer for us. It was a no-brainer for me. It being something I'd always wanted to do. And then that basically propelled us to actually build out the technology that we knew we could build with customers that actually were going to use the software. And I think as a tech entrepreneur, especially, the it's very easy to build something that you fall in love with that actually isn't very useful, right?
Yeah.
Even if it is in the right market. And I think it's really important when you're building this stuff to do it alongside customers, alongside experts like yourself, alongside partners, to actually build the best system that's actually going to help human beings, right? Do something, right? And that's how the energy side of things came in. And it's such a big industry, all the way from, we've talked about wind and solar, right, and energy storage systems, but then you've got the whole, forgive me, I like to call it the bean counting side of energy,
Yeah, the
which is
financial
the
side.
financial and the markets, which
Exactly what I call it.
Exactly. And it's such you've got these physical systems and then these markets that are so closely intertwined in a way that, it's less about psychology and more about the physics behind what goes on. Whereas the actual markets today, if you look at, the actual, S&P 500, a lot of that is based on psychology and the economy. Now, don't get me wrong, energy is as well through the way the world works, but it is also tied now into weather and forecasting and predictions and how people physically use systems, which is just absolutely like, it's like an enigma, but it's a solvable enigma, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how energy became a thing, and software to this, if that makes sense.
I like your package because, so obviously I've been looking at it with your team, and you can break it down right to the simple starting points. And that's one of my posts today. I've been talking about how energy management and organizations, when they look at software, you could take, like what you've got with your whole system, they could take one big bite chunk out of what you're doing for their organization. That would cost a significant amount of money. However, just by taking those small steps, baby steps, as I call them, you can build on that. Just monitor your main meter, first of all, with your software. Your software is capable of doing that. And then evolve it bit by bit. As the investment develops and the savings come, you can recycle your savings and to build on that.
Absolutely. And I think, like, one of the things I said is, like, it's to help humans, right? And you've got different I suppose, sides of the spectrum. You've got people, massive teams of individuals with thousands of meters across their estate, right? And they want to analyze all the way from, individual asset level on meters, submeters on asset level, to bills, to carbon output, right? And that requires, a lot of data, but and also a lot of kind of moving to and fro in between different teams. But then you've got, energy managers who have a number of customers. They have main meters. They just want to be able to instantly analyze and see, okay, how much energy am I using? What's the time of day profiles look like? How much energy am I using overnight? Give me some anomalies. Show me some, what kind of discrepancies can the system detect without having to, move data, from Excel, Google Sheets, whatever. And, that, don't get me wrong, there's a skill to that, but actually an energy manager, their job is to manage, is to bring their expertise, right? It's not necessarily to fiddle about, downloading zip files half the time, which is, it's cumbersome. And I'm not fast. When someone sends me hundreds of files in a zip file, I'm like, oh God, how long is it going to take to download it? I mean, I think I opened 100 meg CSV, a few weeks ago, and I was thinking, it's a good job I've got a good computer, because, if I've got a laptop that's kind of, that's pretty good, but not good enough, it's going to take ages to open. And I think it's that we're trying to solve, and really give that insight, and take that expertise that an energy manager is going to look at. They go, right, I know what this is, right? I know what I need to look for, and this is telling me and validating exactly what it is that I need to do. And then from there, you can layer on things like forecasting, anomaly detection. When you get into the bigger utility side of things, you've got the control of assets and optimizing assets, and how do you control a building, right? And optimize a building, right? Automatically, those kind of things. So yeah, it starts with that human-centric approach, and make it simple, easy to do, easy to use. Because at the end of the day, like, me and you were used to things like Facebook and apps on your iPhone now.
Exactly.
And that's how people really should be, seeing tools like this. They should be super easy to use, super intuitive. And I think in the past,
they want to see this one click, don't they? One point of action. They click on it, bang. They've got the data. They know exactly what's happening from that one click.
Yeah, I was speaking with an energy manager recently of a supermarket, one of the supermarkets, and I think he said, look, he's just like, I just want a screen that shows me my biggest problems. Like, I don't want, like, I love half-hourly data as much as the next person, but I don't want to spend 3 days going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Right. That then just disappears because it's been an anomaly and it's disappeared and it actually hasn't been caught in the right way. Actually, I've spent £1,000 more energy this week in one store than I should have. But actually, is that really an anomaly, or is that to do with trading conditions, operational factors, or weather? It's a waste of time to the point when you've gone through that and gone, oh, well, actually, it's not really something to worry about. It's kind of crazy. And more energy managers, more and more experts want to lend on their expertise and what they know than, fiddling about with, things that are a waste of their time, which is, time is money at the end of the day.
I love Excel, but I do find myself doing too much work on Excel to actually, and what frustrates me is that each customer will be different. So I can bring the next customer in and go, no, I don't want it like that. I need it like this.
Yeah.
I need you to provide this sort of reporting, not that sort of reporting. There's no one fits all, does it?
Yeah. I mean, the different types of organizations, depending on what assets they've got and how their business operates, will be looking at different KPIs from an energy perspective as well. Like if you've got refrigeration systems, heating systems, if you're a manufacturer with gas and electricity based furnaces or whatever it is, you're going to have things like base load, and you don't really care too much about, like, what your base load is going to be. It's like, well, people say, well, I know what my base load is going to be. I don't need to track that. But then you think, well, what about that bit on top that is the area that you can save money, or you might actually be able to optimize certain pieces, certain kind of like processes and the times of day that you operate your assets and things like that, depending on, how you buy and procure energy. But it's a really interesting one because, in our platform, we have these automated reports that you can kind of set up, right? And we've got things like, time of day profile analysis, which can email you every day or every week or, every year. And it'll say, here's your average time of day profiles for these types of assets. And you can filter it down by properties. We've got like a meter league report, which kind of like benchmarks different like the significant changes over the course of time. We've got, you've got your typical degree day analysis pieces as well, forecasts. A big one is data quality, actually, Paul, which you probably, as you know yourself, like, even if you're measuring something, if the quality of data is really poor, then everything you're basing your report on or your forecast on is going to be wrong, right?
I have a say in there. Go on. With my grey hair, crap in, crap out, basically.
Yeah, it's true. And I've seen some really interesting stuff, right, where, people don't realize that certain meters are broken. They might be working, working, but they are broken. They are reporting incorrect readings. I've seen this with water meters recently, significant water meter, bills just are completely incorrect because meters aren't working, or, they're not valid or whatever. And if you look at what how the technology industry is adopting new technology, like advanced forecasting, people are talking about machine learning and AI, right? That requires data. It requires a lot of data, but very high quality data.
Yeah.
So if you do not have good data, you do not analyze the quality of your data and go, well, is it duplicate readings? Is it missing readings? Is there significant anomalies within that data? You put them into your forecast, you put them into a machine learning model. I don't even want to, I've seen forecasts, I've seen people try and control assets based on incorrect forecasts. It's not pretty because people either lose money, or they don't actually have the visibility that they think they've got, and that's, it could be very, very bad, or it could be very, very, very bad. It's one or the other.
So Jordan, as the CEO, you seem to be very hands-on. Do you get amongst it? The right front end of it all?
Yeah, for sure. So I spend 50-60% of my time with customers, talking to customers on architectural solutions for big and small projects. So it could be anywhere from deploying, very, very sophisticated smart metering infrastructure for plants that, it might be doing raw water, it might be doing sewage, step plants. So actually looking at reutilizing, analyzing meter data from raw water incomers, it goes through a sewage plant, and then it actually gets put back into the main reservoirs to 230 kV substations that are stepping down to 32 kV or whatever. And I'm looking at how do we validate that the energy usage on these systems is correct, and is that's tied into the bills, all sorts of stuff. But it could even be the smaller things like retailers where they just want to monitor one or two meters and get that data. And I think it's really important to have the breadth to work alongside these customers, whether they're slightly smaller organizations, really large organizations, because it gives you perspective. It gives you perspective on both sides. Like what great things over here can be taken over here, and vice versa. Because at the end of the day, keep it simple is always a good motto, and things can be overcomplicated very quickly and easily, regardless of if it's energy or even software. So yeah.
What are the challenges you're up against currently regarding software?
Software specifically, it's a really interesting one. So I think we have our as a company trying to solve problems. The challenges we're up against are twofold. We have our own challenges developing software, right? Like any company has, not huge challenges, but it's just how do we make this as easy for the user to understand, to understand, to work with as possible. Like how do you reduce the clicks that they have to make to get the things that we're just kind of referring to.
The user element of it.
The user experience is massively important. I think the biggest challenges that we see as a business for our customers in terms of like what they're trying to do is the visibility of data, the connectivity to their assets, right? Like how do I connect to my building management system? How do I connect to my energy meters? I want to see the data, half hourly data, 1 minute intervals, whatever, so I can actually do something. So I've got visibility, whether it's a big warehouse, a depot, a supermarket, factory, whatever. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And people try and throw software at that problem straight away.
Yeah.
And it is not just a software problem, as it is it's a what meters, it's a metering, what meters do you have? Let's try and make it really easy and cost effective to connect to them without having to, replace infrastructure that's expensive and it's a CapEx requirement, right? And then you've got the bit around, is the 4G around or is the Wi-Fi? And then you've got that. And then only then when you've solved those problems, which we're very good at now, we're really good at doing that, can you get to the software bit where you're going, okay, show me where my worst performing store, show me my worst performing meters, show me my worst performing asset. Why is it performing terribly compared to the same asset in somewhere else and with the same operating conditions, the same operating factors? And I think that's a challenge that we're trying to address with our customers. How do we make that super simple? How do we tell energy managers, asset operators, facilities managers, not only that this system is poorly performing, but why is it poorly performing compared to the other assets? And also, what does that mean for you in the future if you don't do something about it? How much money is it going to cost you? Right? Yeah. Those are the challenges we're trying to overcome. For us as a business now, going back to our challenges, I think it's a complex industry, isn't it? Like it's a complex industry going back to the physical pieces, the bean counting, and without, I think as any business, if you just purely treat it as a software problem and rather than a human problem, you're not going to get very far very quickly, I don't think, because at the end of the day, the people using this are the people who are going to enact change, right? And that's really the end customer to us.
What's going to happen? Those people are going to evolve. You're going to have the bean counters, the financial directors, the owners, which don't tend to want to get too involved, but they're going to be wanting to see some sort of form of visibility because they're not necessarily going to be working in the offices. They're going to be working from home maybe or abroad. It's going to go right down to the cleaner, isn't it, regarding what visibility they need, because everyone is impacted by it.
So, you've hit the nail on the head there. And one thing that we're seeing a lot of organizations do, the larger organizations especially, but even some of the small to medium enterprises, is put that data in front of the people who are actually on the ground, right? Who are actually operating the assets, who are in the stores, who are, walking through the corridor and seeing, okay, this is how much energy this building is using right now. Because if you look at the way the world is going, whether it's through climate change, whether it's the perspective of climate change, whether it's the perspective of energy costs and prices and the wholesale market. I mean, let's just look at the wholesale market at the moment and what's going on with the domestic side of things, especially, right? There's no getting around the fact that sustainability, net zero it's everyone. If not everyone is involved, then it's never going to happen, right? Because from the perspective of, well, people think, well, it's not my problem, I don't need to deal with it. If everyone thinks like that, then nothing's going to get done about it. But that has secondary effects, which is costs go up, operating costs go up. The financial side gets in. Finance is always involved in some, from a procurement perspective. When it's down to the nitty gritty, it depends on how passionate about energy and the costs and looking at savings that finance person might be. But it goes top down, bottom up now, right? It's such a strange thing for us to see because we've been doing this since 2016, and it's only in the last 12 to 18 months that has everyone. It's just, since COVID, obviously with COVID, there's been some delays, but it's only now, like I said, since coming out of the last 12 months that everyone is talking, not just talking about, but people are doing things, and they're seeing that there are not just sustainability benefits, there are significant cost savings. For one customer alone, it's in the tens of millions, right, of savings. Obviously their estate is huge, and that's over 5 to 7 years, but it's insane to see that just visibility and optimization of existing systems can save that. I say it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's kind of obvious, right? The third biggest expense, right? I mean, it's not crazy.
You've been reading my posts.
I have been reading your posts. I mean, what kind of partner wouldn't?
So I've got a couple of questions in my head bubbling around. So you're doing lots of work with supermarkets.
Yeah.
And so my favorite saying really is from a corner shop to an office block and everything in between. Now, how far the supermarkets, quite multitude of properties, how far we've seen that coming down now? How far? Is it, we're going corner shop level yet, or we're not quite there?
No, we're seeing it. We're seeing it. To be honest, like I said, prior to COVID, there was a lot of, there was a lot of interest. There was a lot going on. Obviously, when COVID hit, it kind of obviously, business is really important. So it's looking at how the economy was going to kind of, I suppose, unfold in terms of, what was going on. Having said that, we are seeing, corner shops, even restaurant chains with individual restaurants, right? Looking at this, and it might not even be a case of, I'm going to install and, making sure my energy metering is good, right? So I can get that data out. It might already be that data is already available. Like we've talked about with your, some of the people that, we've been working with, Paul, right? Yeah. So therefore you can just drag and drop that data into a tool, right? That gives them that visibility, that these people, that visibility. It might be what we're seeing more so now, more than ever, is just trying to automate that flow. So automate that flow of data that's coming, say, from a meter operator or your utility provider into a system that can actually highlight this for you. So it can come in many forms. And yeah, I'd say that the corner shops are an interesting one because it's typically the shops that are, I would say, less franchised, mostly because they do have fridge assets, they do have lights, and actually, if you look at the 10-20% saving of energy that you can unlock, you literally get visibility of, that can stack up very quickly, and that's money on the bottom line, isn't it? So it's important for anyone, whether it's corner shop to supermarket.
Yeah. Now, I've designed software and I've done a lot of work with various different organizations regarding software.
Yeah.
And I've always favored, because my background's IM serve and data collection side of it. So my always thought pattern has been provide the data the following morning. So by getting the data in the following morning, I can look back to what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
If I was getting it a month in arrears, I think, what did I do last month?
Yeah.
So that's always why I asked the organization to prove whether we should go day plus one.
Yeah.
But I used to think real time, no, it's too much data there and then. I haven't got time. I need to be managing my building. I need to be managing lights. I need to be managing people being hot and cold.
Yeah.
But that's changing.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I can feel that myself. I think if I was in that sales role now, I wouldn't be saying that. I'd be saying real time.
There's a reason for that. Like there's a number of reasons really. So you can have as much data in the world, right? If you don't do something with it, then it's kind of a cost in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the way the world is moving, with the way, like in terms of what's going on with the grid and the digitalization of energy, and the way renewables are kind of superseding, typical coal or fossil fuel based systems with the inertia of the grid, the way the world is moving is you need to have much more well, you need to have real-time data. Some people call it kind of temporal resolution if you're talking about solar-like systems and big, real-time markets and stuff. But there's a reason for that. And the reason is this. If you look at optimizing assets, right, and being able to spot anomalies with the seasonal trend. And when we talk about seasonal trend, I'm talking about seasonality within a day. I'm not talking about like seasons, like weather. I'm talking about an asset will turn on at this time, or people will come into the store at this time, or machines are used at this time. That's seasonality, right? In terms of a trend. And if you've got if you're spotting anomalies, you're able to spot anomalies in real time, that means you can do something faster about it and save more money. Right, that is one example, right? But the other side of it is to be able to train models to analyze and look at anomalies at that kind of level. You need higher fidelity data, and that doesn't necessarily mean real time, but it means faster sample rates. So the creme de la creme right now is half-hourly metering data, half-hourly automated metering data. That is where everyone wants to get to, which is fantastic, right? It's 48 readings a day. That's the way the market's run. It's the way, my domestic meter's going. And that's really important for doing things like being able to offer dynamic tariffs and doing all sorts of stuff around being able to charge your car when it's cheaper, and looking at the way that you can help prop the grid up and various different things. But the other thing is, when you're doing that at the level of an asset, so every 60 seconds is what we do now, every single minute, and that's typically instantaneous power data and half-hourly consumption, not half-hourly consumption, but consumption data, those two things. And that allows us to build up a profile of an asset at such, that takes it from 48 readings a day to 1,440. Now that sounds like, okay, an order of magnitude more of data, whatever. What that allows us to do is train models to predict what the asset's going to do at a much higher accuracy. And then that can be used to spot those anomalies. But then the next step is, okay, I want to optimize that asset. I want to automatically tweak what the asset's going to do based on weather data, based on operational factors, based on energy prices, whatever it may be. And you absolutely do not want to run control and then a day later go, did it work? did when I turned on my thing, or did I turn it down? I have to wait 24 hours to work out if I've got a huge bill or I've saved a load of money, right?
Yeah.
And that's another reason why real time is becoming more important, is because if you are changing the system state based on automatic, very clever tech, you do not want to find out day plus one later that there was a bug in your software and everything's on fire. No, I'm joking. It's more than that, but that's another reason as well. So lots of different reasons, and it's kind of exciting because you can do some very clever stuff. You can disaggregate. You can take high frequency data sampling means that you can take 1 meter and actually disaggregate what's on the meter. I can see a washing machine, or I can see a bakery oven, or I can see whatever. And that's quite clever because it actually can reduce costs in having to submeter. Obviously, you can't use that in the same way for maybe billing, but it's a good way of reducing the cost to analyze data, which is...
So just looking at the one
profile,
you can disaggregate.
Yeah. So as long as you've got a fast enough sample rate on your effectively being able to...
Yeah, I'll get that.
Then essentially there are ways of disaggregating, saying, well, this is when the bakery's turned on, or this is when people have gone into store, or the lights have gone up, or everyone's trying to buy beers because the football's on and they're trying to do whatever. If you only can sample the consumption at every half hour interval, you can't dive into the individual points, which can then actually be disaggregated against what assets you've got.
You just brought a light bulb on in my head.
Go on.
I know. These podcasts are really amazing for me. I'm getting humbleized. I'm getting teaching. I didn't think that I would ever be able to be taught about software. And I've been in software for many, many years. And you've just flicked a little light bulb in my head. I'm thinking, wow, I've just learned something here. I'm really... Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you for that.
No, honestly, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be able to be on your podcast, Paul. But these are all the amazing things, right? That you're able to do with data. But it goes back to my original point. Unless you do something about, with it, data can be a cost.
Exactly.
So that's why we're building tools. Like we want to take the really complex problems and build them into software that is democratized for everyone, whether it's an individual consultant who needs the power of machine learning and advanced statistics, to massive teams of individuals who are dealing with wind farms or energy storage systems or district heating networks, right? So it's exciting. I honestly
totally excited. I love the looking at AI and things, the stuff we can do now with AI. It's like this podcast. I can just whack it into some software shortly and it just turn it into notes, accurate
awesome.
wording. It's the stuff we can do now with AI. AI is becoming artists and writing, even do their own posts now.
It's kind of crazy that without going into the philosophical and existential side of AI, which I don't think we should do on this podcast. Maybe we should say it. It should be like a
should we say that for the next one?
AI Speaks Back podcast. This will be the next thing. Skynet's coming for us, Paul. But it's really interesting that we are seeing and using. We have projects that we're doing some really interesting stuff using things like cameras and machine vision to look at the way the buildings are being used, how many people are in which area, and then optimizing the assets based on that. And that's using, there's a whole privacy side of those things as well. You don't want to be, you do not want CCTV footage of people in the cloud, right? So how do you solve that? And what working with a fantastic organization to basically make it so we can process images on the edge. That means as close to where we're making the readings as possible. So using AI, very specialized hardware. It could be in a supermarket. It could be, in a factory, right? And we know where or how an asset is being used by people interacting with it, and then changing the state of a system, like reducing, and it could be as simple as, okay, well, we're going to reduce lights, or we know how many people are in the store and therefore we're going to orchestrate this kind of thing. But it could be even things like, we taking photos of the sky, right? And using machine learning to forecast how much energy generation rather, solar arrays are going to make based on cloud cover. There's so much to it. It's crazy. It's the stuff that people are doing is just, it's beyond, it's just crazy, but it's important, because if we don't do it, me and you wouldn't be able to podcast, because
we have nothing to talk about.
Well, there's that, and then we wouldn't have any electricity, right? Like all the power would be off. I'm being kind of totally doomsday, but whatever.
It's at this point in the podcast that I like to put my I'm on the spot at the moment because this is all gone over my head and I'm shocked. So it's at this time within the podcast where I like to ask my guest and put them on a spot. You don't need to be put on a spot because you're just on the spot as far as I'm concerned. to give us, to see if there's anything they can give back to our industry today. Is there anything as a takeaway?
A takeaway. So is it a case of like it's someone taking something away from me, or I have taken away from the industry, or a bit of both?
Well, you're going to give back to the industry today.
I'm going to give back to the industry. Okay. It's a good question. So you really have put me on the spot. I thought I was already on the spot. I suppose the biggest thing I can give back to the industry in terms of advice is kind of covering one of the points that I've already mentioned, and that is, if you're collecting data, do something with it. Otherwise, it is going to cost you money, right? There's no point doing any projects around like monitoring or energy management to collect data if you're not actually going to do something with it. That's the biggest takeaway that I've learned on my journey so far. Yeah. And I think it's a really important piece, because I've seen huge investments go into these kind of things, and no one looks at the dashboards or no one looks at the reports, right? And that's almost the bit that I want to give back to the energy community, a tool, a system that is super effective, super cost effective, super easy to use, that helps, fix that problem. So that's kind of what I want to give back to the community, and that's my advice I can give around that. There are a whole host of other things that I could probably go into, but you'd be here all night, Paul.
That answer is awesome, because when I do my energy assessments, they tell me, yes, I've been collecting the data. I write it in my book. I take a meter reading once a week. Really great book. It's all nicely, neatly written, all in this. So I said, what do you do with that data? Oh, we just keep it in the book. Well, now put the data into Excel and graph it, and
what's
the data will come
is the
alive.
trend going up or down in terms of consumption? If it's not, if it's going up, and you don't know why, then that's there's a problem there.
And based on what you're saying, you want to bring that data alive, and I really respect that. That's really refreshing to hear that.
Turn it from it's data needs to be turned into information, right? There's a very different concept between what data is and information, and it's really important to take that data that's in that book and turn it into actual actionable information, and that's what we want to do.
Brilliant. Jordan, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today on this podcast, and also for powering Now Energy Speaks Back. We're very proud of our relationship that we're building. Long may it continue, and thank you for joining us. And please continue. There's always a chair for you to come and be interviewed, and put me on the spot.
Well, I will take you up on that offer next time, Paul. We will do we'll do role reversals. Honestly,
apparently I'm coming on your podcast soon, aren't I? You're going to be doing one in November.
Yeah. I think Mike was mentioning that. I'm looking forward. Yes, I will make sure that there is a spotlight on you this time. This time coming. But thanks so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, and you and your family, please be safe.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you for our special guest today, and thank you for our sponsors, B2B Energy, which can be found at b2benergy.co.uk, and Clean Energy Revolution, which can also be found either through various different social media networks. Type in #Clean Energy Revolution. That leaves me with one more thing to say. Be safe.